On the conversation of bags of rice, what is fuel cost going to be by the holiday season? We're already gone into towards 1,000 naira. Are people really going to be able to survive this season? It's not like minimum wage has changed for a lot of people. And Francis, there's the end of the month is here. It's time for us to now observe if the federal government is going to add that 35,000 naira wage. What does it call it now? Wage. The English word is the word is escaping me, but that's wage addition that they're supposed to add for
Wage award.
Wage award. I wanted that correct English. So the end of the month is almost here. Let's see what the federal government is going to do. Because of course they're already having a strange relationship, with the NLC TUC already. They're saying we are coming to the end of our 30 days. The MOU that we signed, you are slow and all of that. So there's a lot to look into at this particular time. But the holidays are almost here. 2 more months to the end of 2023. I think I read something just yesterday when someone said, I hope y'all know that 2024 is starting on a Monday. That means, 2024 is starting on a Monday. That's a big deal. A lot is going to be happening. But it's a good day to rise and shine, whichever way you look at it. And of course, we'd like to remind you to be a part of the conversation. Thank you to everyone who takes our time to make contribution, like, share, comment across all the social media platforms. We appreciate everyone who sends us feedback on our content. You are the reason why we are here, and we keep improving on all that we do to give you a better service this morning. So, of course, today is another day. Please do take advantage of all of our social media platforms. Also take advantage of our phone lines that will be displayed on your screen for you to send us WhatsApp messages, for you to call in and make contributions on some of the issues that will be raised on the floor of Rise and Shine this morning. Francis, what do we seem to have on our plate? What is boiling in Nigeria today?
Well, a lot is happening in Nigeria and within and outside the shores of the country. I think as far as the political scene is concerned, the appointment of new resident electoral commissioner is top on the list of conversation this morning. We also see that we're also talking about the jet fuel and the concerns raised by marketers and what that would mean for the festivities. Of course, the issue of the organized labor is still very much up for conversations. We're also looking at some of the concerns that have been raised by Nigerians. Former Vice President Shatima has spoken about the establishments of farms across the respective locations in the country, and those farms are definitely going to be part of the president's agricultural plan to drive transformation, boost food security. We're also talking about mental health, of course, where the U.S. is suing social media Meta, accusing them of harming the youths. Of course, another one, a very controversial one for that matter. We see Nollywood celebrity Tonto Dike defecting from the ADC to the ruling All Progressives Party. And those are the different concerns we will be talking about this morning. Of course, still the issue of doctors' welfare coming all the way from, I think Edo State or thereabout, talking about the fact that the Ondo State, talking about the fact that the state government is yet to uplift or upgrade the hazard allowances meant for doctors. I mean, a paltry sum of 5,000 naira for all the risks these medical practitioners are exposed to is a sorry amount to be heard of in this 2023, especially when you put that aside with the daily expenditures that politicians do on a day-to-day basis. I think yesterday I was just having conversations with somebody and I said, it's so disheartening to know that some politicians' dog, feed a lot more than Nigerians feed on a daily basis. So you can imagine that a politician dog eats what 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 Nigerians cannot eat in a day. And then you ask, where are we headed in the country?
Well, the question of where we're headed in the country is, I'm sure it's a question that Nigerians ask every now and then. We are here to see how we make progress as a country, but let's go to the very top of our flash news this morning. Information making the rounds this morning shows that the estranged former EFCC boss, speaking of Abdul Rashid Bawa, of course, has been freed from the DSS detention after 134 days. Of course, remember that just after the president's Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into office, he ousted two leading chairpersons of, two of Nigeria's leading institutions, and Bawa was one of them who came under that perceived knife by some people, and different things. But after 134 days, Bawa has been released from the DSS detention. Now, I think just coming across this news this morning raised quite a number of questions in my mind. Now that Bawa has been released from the detention of the DSS, is this going to be the end of the issue and some of the charges that were raised against him? Is Bawa going to attempt to make any kinds of legal move against the federal government? What exactly is this going to be going forward, or is this just that we have come to the end of this particular pursuit? Of course, the EFCC has been given a new boss to take on the saddle of responsibility, but Bawa has been freed as of this morning, 134 days done.
Well, of course, we know that the spokesperson of the DSS, Peter Funaya, has not responded to queries made by journalists as far as the way forward and the plan for Bawa after its release from the DSS is concerned. And that also raises a whole lot of questions. Why is the DSS being quiet about future plans for the release former EFCC boss Bawa? The issues that concerns his being arrested been resolved while he was in custody? Or are we looking at a situation where the DSS is trying to regroup to look at other things, maybe continue investigation, seek other evidences that will allow them to conveniently be able to take up Bawa again, and this time around without being able to miss on the whatever charges that they're going to bring up against him? But be that as it may, I think one thing Nigerians would also comment or would react to is the fact that he's been released. Before now, Nigerians are asking, why just arrest a person because he was in an office, and then you're sending him straight to the custody of the DSS without charging him to court or without any court of competent jurisdiction actually convicting him? So those concerns were raised, and now we have him out. On the other side, you're looking at, will Bawa be instituting a case against the federal government for infringement on his fundamental human rights? Will we see Bawa also trying to get, damages for whatever inconveniences he must have been exposed to? Or has the case been resolved? So we have EFCC former boss being allowed to work free. There is no further case instituted against him by the federal government, no further case by him against the federal government, which of course will raise the biggest question mark. Why was he arrested in the first place? Was it a matter of political witch hunting? And has the matter that led to his arrest been resolved underneath the surface without Nigerians actually, being taken into consideration or being put in the know of what has transpired? Well, it's going to be an interesting turn to see what the developments are going to be like going forward. But beyond this release, Nigerians are really expectant to hear what the federal government and the DSS is going to come up with, and also on the part of Bawa, what his comments is going to be after his release from the custody of the DSS.
Well, that's it. That's the much that we have with regards to the release of the estranged EFCC chair. Of course, I'm talking of Abdul Rashid Bawa this time. There's a lot of questions, I beg your pardon, around that release. What is next on the part of the federal government, on the part of the DSS, on the part of Bawa? What exactly is going to happen? Is this the end of this particular, what will you call it, financial romance, allegations against Bawa at this time? But then again, we move up. By off-season elections are coming in 3 states: Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi State. Of course, we see the president appointing 9 new INEC recs to supervise and oversee the coming off-season election. Of course, in other responsibilities for other states also. But there's been the appointments of 9 new INEC regs. I think one of the biggest concerns here is that just after this season of elections, a lot of Nigerians asked that the Independent National Electoral Commission be absolutely overhauled to see how we can rejig that system, the people that work in it, to see how effective we can have that institution for Nigeria. But the appointment of new INEC rec, is this going to mean some fresh air for the institution at this time, especially as we see that November 11 is closing in on us?
Well, it's definitely a cause for concern. We know that INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has said the INEC had cleared over 145 organizations and is deploying about 7,896 observers for the 3 elections. Of course, he also spoke about the fact that civil society organizations have expressed their different concerns about the safety of persons involved in the election, which takes us to the question of security. We know that also one of the meetings that has been held by the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has also been with security agencies or heads of security agencies concerning the off-cycle elections happening in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi State. But of course, one thing that is evidently clear is the commitment on the part of the security agencies, who have vowed also to ensure that an enabling environment is being provided for electorates to come out, cast their vote, and go back in one piece. One conversation that is very much around this point is the need for INEC to redeem itself. Recall the just concluded elections, we saw a lot of violence across the states of the Federation. It's also an opportunity for the Nigerian security forces to up their game. This time around is not the generality of the country, so you would not be talking about the shortage of manpower or personnel to man the different polling units across the local government areas of the respective 3 states that are going to be having these elections side by side. You're looking at enough manpower across board, from the military to the police to the Civil Defense Corps and other paramilitary organizations that have been deployed over time for election duties. And of course, that should be able to put checks in the general operationality of the electoral process, and also ensure that people do not take to violence. Because one thing is certain: when you get to a polling unit, for instance, and you find in a polling unit of say 200, 300 persons, and you find just one policeman, standing watch, the chances are everybody or anybody who went there for violence purposes is going to do it. Of course, he's not going to be alone. So when he looks around and he sees just one policeman, what can one policeman do against maybe 5, 7, 10 heavily, armed youths? But when you go to such places and you're finding like 3 trucks of police personnel heavily armed to their teeth, and you're seeing another truck fully loaded with military personnel heavily armed, you're going to think 100 million times before thinking of causing trouble in that venue. So I think Nigerians are expecting to have a lot more serene environment for the off-season elections, and if we can achieve that, then maybe INEC and the security agencies will be able to redeem themselves for the shortcomings that they had during the just concluded elections.
Well, with regards to security, when it comes to off-season elections, it's usually easy for even INEC and security agencies to deploy hands, because, I mean, the concentration is just on 3 states as opposed to having the whole country come up for an election. So it's usually easy. I know that analysts have said, can we really calculate the performance of INEC and security agencies in an election by activities of an off-season election? We have more hands that can be deployed from various states to these 3 states, and so you would literally almost have everything going, hitch free. But we are looking also at the fact that special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Ajirin Gilali, has said that the confirmation of these 10 regs as appointed by the president is yet to come in from the Senate, of course. But by the powers vested on the president by sections 154, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, and Section 6 of the Electoral Act of 2022, the President has approved the appointment of 10 new resident electoral commissioners for the Independent National Electoral Commission for a term of 5 years each. Of course, this is still subject to the confirmation of the Nigerian Senate. Now we have Mr. Etekamba Umorin appointed as Akwa Ibom State Resident Electoral Commissioner. So I'm just going to run through the names of the new appointees. We have Etekamba Umorin, Akwa Ibom State Resident Electoral Commissioner. We have Isa Shaka Ehimene, Edo State Resident Electoral Commissioner. Mrs. Oluwatoyin Babalola, Ekiti State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Mr. Abubakar Ahmed Maji, Gombe State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Mr. Shehu Wahab, Kwara State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Dr. Bumi Omosen Dembi, Lagos State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Mr. Minu Kasimu Idris, Nasarawa State, Professor Muhammad Yelwa, Niger State, Dr. Andubum Onuha, Rivers State. We have the last name here, Mr. Ismaila Kaura Moyi for Zamfara State. These are the names of some of the people, the 10 persons that have been appointed by the president, subject to the confirmation of the Senate at this time. Well, when we see these 10 people resuming their various states as listed, let's see what kind of groundwork that they begin to put on the ground. We know that 4 years is still quite a journey from here because we just finished our elections. But we know that if we are going to get it right in the next cycle of the elections, we would begin to see hands on deck attempting to rejig some of the sore areas that we experienced in the last season of elections. So we would say congratulations to the 10 people that have been appointed, but it's subject to the confirmation of the Senate. Questions are going to be asked, some probes are going to be done. Let's make sure that we do not have the kind of activities that we saw in Adamawa State in the case of Binani, versus INEC versus, the REC and all of that. That issue is still yet unresolved. We have not heard the, conclusive end of that. So 10 new RECs. Let's see how this is going to move the electoral body forward in the preparations for whatever seasons of elections we're going to have.
Well, the appointment of the 10 new regs is not really sitting well with all Nigerians at this point in time. Remember, one of the observations that was made by the European Union election, 2023 European Union elections observers in Nigeria was that we need to get to a point where the people who man this very critical institution that is in charge of the electoral process are not subjected to being appointed by the politicians who are themselves going to vie for elections within the tenure of these respective resident electoral commissioners, because chances of them compromising to support whoever was behind their being appointed is definitely very much available or very much possible for that to happen. Of course, at this point in time, some of the conversations, reactions to the appointment that is being made, even though it is subject to the Senate, Nigerians would say the Senate and the national, the reps, the House of Reps, this period in the last, the few screenings that we've witnessed so far has always been take a bow and go. Apart from El Rufai and a few others who were, not allowed to go through with the screening during the ministerial nomination by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Every other appointment that has been made has always been ratified by the House of Reps and the Senate, working side by side with the executive. So Nigerians are saying, well, this could be just another move by the APC-led administration to put strategically people in places to favor the elections in the next 4 years. Look at Akwa Ibom, for instance. Mr. Tekema that has been appointed is said to have been a very loyal member of the APC and of course also loyal to, reportedly loyal to the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. So you're looking at conversations happening in the state, the attempt to pick up Akwa Ibom State in the next 4 years for the APC is very much there. And then, of course, you're also talking about those conversations across the other 10 persons who have been appointed. And, of course, the question of, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu not still going through with his promise to appoint people across board into his cabinet is still very much up. And Nigerians are wondering why President Ahmed Bola Tinubu would have said that his appointees will cut across different political parties. Instead of that, we are seeing defection. We are seeing people cross-carpeting from other political parties just to gain favor. I think the only person so far in this administration that Nigerians can say for the time being that he has not openly defected from the PDP to the APC is the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike. But then, of course, Nigerians would say maybe he's buying time. Maybe he's waiting for the right time for him to make the declaration. Or maybe he's just going to stand by his word of saying, you know what, I am only serving the interests of Nigerians. But as far as party loyalty is concerned, I am a PDP member and I will remain a PDP member. But be that as it may, one of the things the Nigerians would also talk about borders on the ability of the Senate to bring in these aspects of the election process for the resident electoral commissioners and other key officials of INEC, from the chairman to the reg to other key personalities within the electoral umpire, not being subjected to the appointment that is ratified through political office or through the office of the president, but looking at other places that people can actually recommend. Maybe is a procedure that is left in the hands of maybe civil service cadre or things related, but not directly being imposed or directly being chosen or directed by president and then being ratified by the Senate. But be that as it may, congratulations to the new resident electoral commissioners. Nigerians, regardless of the concerns they have, regardless of the issues raised, will still say we hope that you will be able to come in, and regardless of who paid the piper that detected the tune that brought you into that office, you would know that there's a difference between being appointed and serving Nigerians. I mean, we cannot forget what happened in Abia State. In as much as that resident electoral commissioner was appointed by the powers that be, she stood her ground for the interests of the Abia people, for the interests of her children. And as a mother, she did say she cannot do what is not right. And today, the Abia people are still celebrating, just like we saw just after the announcement was made. And the generality of Nigerians are hoping that that celebration will continue for the next 4 years. And by the end of the 4 years, we can actually look back and say, yes, this is true democracy happening. True dividends of democracy was, delivered to the people.
Well, that's a really strong point. Posterity is going to remember some of the investment that we bring. But moving to the our major story for today, we see the fact that the federal government is moving to stop salaries of unverified workers tomorrow, being Friday. IPPIS has been one of the very big controversies on the table. The systematic use of the IPPIS has been an issue between the federal government and the AXU. ASU, I beg your pardon. Part of the conversations and the deliberations that were kept on the table when ASU went on strike. But it looks like the federal government has been able to put some modalities on ground to be able to fish out unverified workers. And from tomorrow, it is said that the salaries of these unverified workers are going to stop. But this can still bring us to several questions. When you say it's different from having ghost workers in the system, when you say these workers are unverified, what are the things that have summed up to making these persons unverified? Remember that in some of these systems, there are checks and clearances that are done every now and then. So a person who possibly had fallen into the bracket of not being able to do a particular clearance in a particular season, would we have some of these persons who would say, oh, I have been in this system for 10 years, 20 years, I have been working for the federal government, but yet, certain persons are going to be affected by this drop tomorrow. I hope we are not going to have a lot more problems, but we believe that this is a good move made by the federal government, especially if this is primarily smoking out names of ghost workers in the system that makes the federal government and the treasury of the country spend monies to unidentified people.
Well, it's a serious concern. It's a serious concern when you look at the huge number of people who will not be benefiting in the event that this is actually implemented. You're looking about 89,100 workers of the federal government payroll who will not be getting their salaries. Of course, there have been different insinuations of comments made by the leadership of the agency that was saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that people get verified. We know that in 2017 through 2018, there was a move to commence verification, physical verification. That was after the 3 months period that was given for compliance online. But of course, from 2017 April precisely, the OHCDF commenced online registration, physical verification of civil servants. Of course, it was meant to ensure their names are enrolled on the IPPIS platform. And then the essence of the program, we already know, was to weed out ghost workers. But so far, so good. Certain questions are rising. Different processes that have been, instituted by the federal government through the OHCSF to ensure that people get verified. But of course, some of these questions are rising. Different processes that have been, instituted by the federal government through the OHCSF to ensure that people get verified. But of course, some of these questions are rising. Different processes that have been, instituted by the federal government through the OHCSF to ensure that people within the Civil Service Commission get to comply has still not yielded the desired fruit. We see that the Director of Communications, M.A. Mate, explained that the expiration of the deadline has left the government with no choice than to delete all the names not found on the IPPS from its payroll. There are different concerns that will arise from this one. Now, are we saying that the 89,100 workers that are not enlisted through the different verification process from 2017 down to 2023, that is almost, that's about 5 years period, different program. And it is interesting to see that Ahmed has said the processes of verification had also been straightened down to the state level for federal government workers at the state level to also have the opportunity to get themselves verified in one piece. But I think one of the questions, or some of the questions I like to ask, and Nigerians would like to ask, when you're talking about verification, when you're talking about the internet, we know how it is with government agencies in this country, and when it comes to being able to get yourself verified, how seamless, how transparent, how free were the verification processes? Are we talking about the kind of verification process where people will leave their offices and queue for days without being successful? Is that the kind of verification that was done for the IPPIS? And I'd like for Nigerians who are under the Federal Civil Service to probably reach out and talk to us this morning. How was the verification in your state? Was it seamless? Because we know, as far as internet is concerned, as far as verification that is driven by network is concerned, there have always been a lot of issues. You could go today and you're told, oh, we don't have internet connection, come back tomorrow. You come back and say, oh, we don't have power today, there is no fuel, and all of those very funny excuses that we find coming up from the different MDAs of government saddled with responsibility to do certain things. So if that was the case, if we had different delays in the process of verification, if we had people having to queue for days, for weeks without being successful, then Nigerians will call at this point that there is need for us to extend, and there is need for more aggressive physical verification of Nigerian workers. Otherwise, a lot of people who had actually made efforts to get themselves enlisted in the IPPIS will be caught short. And when you're caught short, you're looking for another trouble, which means the NLC, the TUC, and other trade union organizations will be rising for the rights of those people who are working for the federal government and are not getting paid. So we will be asking for a national disaster if we do not take care with this particular move.
It's something that needs a lot of care and a lot of attention. 89,000 plus people is a lot of number. We are raising it almost to 100,000 people that are going to be put out of jobs. Let's also look at let's say, for instance, these 89,000 people are actually people you can touch in flesh and blood who work. If you put all of those numbers out of the payroll at this time, looking at the current reality of the economy on ground, a lot of people are grappling to survive. The minimum wage is barely taking any families now. Now, when you take 89,000 people out of the payroll at this time, it is going to cause a lot of problems. And the ratification of these IPPIS has always been a conversation. Prior to this time, why has it not been settled? Why has ASU and the federal government not found out ways to strengthen this out? Is the move to stop salaries of these 89,000 plus people one of the best moves to make at this time? And why don't we, because we haven't heard of a window of, okay, these 89,000 people that have been highlighted by the federal government to be taken out of the system, why are they not given, let's say, the next 2 months, November, December, to attempt to verify themselves? If you have been, brought forward amongst these 89,000 people and you believe that you are a real worker, you have your certifications, you have all your paperwork, instead, why don't we have the, why don't we have the federal government, and the federal service giving the opportunity for them to be verified? First of all, before we go to wipe away all of that number, it is going to have a very strong economic downturn impact on this number of persons. Multiply that by the number of dependents these 89,000 plus persons have. Analysts will not, say that this is such a very good move. Yes, are we attempting to make sure that our structures are transparent and good enough to do what they're meant to do? Yes, but we must make sure that the policies and the moves made by the federal government and the federal service is not counterproductive. We must also always think of the pros and cons of some of these moves that are going to be made at this time. Of course, a lot of Nigerians have the opinion that there's a lot more better ways that this can be rejected. First of all, in most people's opinion, why don't we first of all try a verification process for these 89,000 plus people? If it falls through, then we know then the federal government is in its rights to take up any action they would so please to.
Well, the conversations are going to span in multiple directions in various ways, different concerns being raised. If these 89,100 people are actually ghost workers, I think all Nigerians will celebrate, because that would mean billions of naira will be saved and rechanneled into developmental projects, and of course looking into the salary review minimum wage that Nigerians, the NLC and the TUC are clamoring for, which is of course within their rights at this point in time, looking at the cost of living. So Nigerians will clap for the federal government, for Ahmed Bola Tinubu and his leaders and the people he is appointed to help him man the respective offices while saving Nigeria. But if this turns out the other way, that these 89,100 persons are actually workers who are on a day-to-day basis going to work, serving the federal government through the different ministries, departments and agencies that they were employed and have their valid documents to justify that. But simply because there's been some lapses in the verification process, they couldn't register. Well, yeah, let's not forget also that majority of these civil service workers are not from the new generation. So it's technology you're talking about, is the internet you're talking about. How many of our mothers and fathers actually are very much savvy with the internet, let alone understand how things work? So if you're introducing things that has to do with the internet, it means there's going to be a lot more time. Yes, you can say 5 years is long enough for everybody to have been, taking advantage of the opportunity from the online to the physical presence. But then the question will still come down to the same thing. How seamless was the physical registration and updating on the server? And then of course you will also be asking, was there enough sensitization? I know in the last few years, one of the biggest conversations, I think it was 2 months ago, that they said it uncovered a situation where funds that were made for awareness by ministries, departments and agencies of government were embezzled by some persons. And then you're asking, if there was no awareness, how do Nigerian workers get to know that it is mandatory and it's compulsory? And then there is a need for them to be part of the verification. So it comes down to looking into the entire process, verifying, ensuring that, okay, all the people, all the agencies that were responsible for the awareness had done massive, aggressive awareness, such that even the child in the womb would be aware that you need to be verified on the IPPIS. And then, of course, when these agents of government for the verification were sent to the respective state and the FCT, we need to also know and ask and confirm that these people were able to do their due diligence to the very last level. And then, if they had done all of that, and then there are still persons who could not, for whatever reason, personal or whatever, be able to verify and got themselves updated, then in the spirit of democracy, in the spirit of not leaving out anybody, I think Nigerians would also call for maybe 2-3 months extension with this threat of ending salaries. When people see that, okay, you're not going to end your salary by October, until probably Nigerians would advocate for a situation where you say, okay, since you have not verified, you have from October ending to, say, January, so February, so March. If you cannot verify, or if you have been able to verify within that time frame, then all your salaries, all your salaries that is being withheld by the federal government will be paid at once, rather than just saying we are going to delist all of these numbers from the payroll. It's going to be a very serious crisis in the event that all of these numbers are not ghost workers. And trust Nigerians who say, we cannot say that all of these numbers is too big an amount to be ghost workers. And if all of this number happens to be ghost workers, then people needs to be thoroughly investigated. And people who have been getting money for these 89,100 workers need to pay back.
There's going to be need for lots of probes and investigation, especially if it turns out to be ghost workers. But moving on from that particular story, a couple of months ago, remember that on the directive of the president, the Foreign Affairs Minister, Ambassador Yusuf Maitama, had said that the president had recalled ambassadors to, Nigerian ambassadors to certain countries. Of course, they were given October 31st as their exit date. We remember also that as a result of this, non-career ambassadors had attempted to initiate moves to remain on their duty post till December 31st. Of course, that particular move was not accepted by the presidency because, the presidency was not convinced on the excuse given to extend their stay. Now, there were allegations of suspicion and suspicious actions of some of the envoys to mop up funds, and the federal government had also moved to place an embargo on last-minute expenditure by the envoys. They had been called to come back to the country as part of recalibration of the nation's foreign policy. Now, President Tinubu, of course, had directed non-career envoys to return home. October 31st is the date line for them, it's due date for them to return back to Nigeria, and that whole ambassadorial responsibility is going to be reshuffled by the federal government as led by the Foreign Affairs Minister, Yusuf Maitama. Exit date is here. What is it going to be for these ambassadors? They were asking to be on that sit till December 31st, but as it stands, the federal government is saying October 31st remains sacrosanct.
What are you going to stay on the seat of power till December 31st to do that you haven't been able to do in the last 2, 3, 4 years that you've occupied that position? The answer is absolutely nothing. So it could go in line with what the federal government is doing. If people are trying to sit back in a position of power when they've been given a due date to return to the country, and then they're trying to, it could possibly be a means of covering up, a means of, picking money they didn't expect. Maybe people, sat in positions they didn't do anything, and they didn't expect that it's not going to be business as usual. The next administration is not going to favor them, and then they're waking up to realize, oh, I didn't have enough time to cover my tracks. I didn't have enough time to do 1 or 2 things that will be for my own personal interest. So the sacrosanct date, would like to see how the federal government is actually going to implement that, because it's not enough for us to keep saying sacrosanct, yes, sacrosanct. Let's wait to see 31st, and if they all return, then we'll say yes, the federal government was very intentional and deliberate. But if they don't return, what punitive measures is the federal government also going to dish out? Because it's just a matter of handing over to the highest staff of the embassy at the time being, and then returning. If the new line of appointment favors you to go back, then you go back. If it doesn't favor you, you sit back and then focus on the other part of your life and run your business. But it's a good step taken by the Ahmed Bola Tinubu's administration, and we do hope that all of the ambassadors get to attend to the call made by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu and return to the country. But of course, it's a great concern, and in their return, we'll also like to see what will be the next step forward.
Exactly.
Will we be seeing reports of what their activities has been over the years that they have saddled the responsibility of representing the Nigerian people? What has been the gains? What has been the challenges that are bringing forth? Because they need to give a report so that the next group of persons who will be going over to man those offices will have valid documents to kickstart their work with. But I think at this point we'll take a pause and, of course, get back to one more conversation before we wrap up.
Well, let's look at Tonto Dike's story before we get to our papers this morning. We remember that during the election season, Tonto Dike's name came up as a deputy governor gubernatorial race candidate with the ADC candidate for Rivers State. It was such a buzz. She was one of the women numbered to be running in the political sphere, attempting to drive up our numbers for the 35% affirmative of women in politics. It was a good drive. Nollywood versus moving into politics, there was a lot of concerns. But the new twist to her political career at this time is the fact that we have seen her move to the APC, and she was received by the national women leader, Dr. Mary Alile, at the party's national secretariat in Abuja on Monday. Of course, she was officially unveiled as an APC member. Of course, she's speaking on her decision to join the APC. Tonto Dike said she believes in the prosperity of Nigeria under President Bola Tinubu's administration. Hence, her decision to move comes at this particular time. Of course, she made the post on her Instagram page on Tuesday. As she said, facts accompanied with evidence usually bring arguments to an end, which propel drastic decisions and changes for the common good. I mean, Tonto DK believes she is on a path to gain some common good with this move to the APC at this time. Of course, she said, having been presented with these facts, goals, and visions of the current renewed hope agenda, I have decided to put emotions aside and work for the greater good of the Nigerian youth, women, and the country at large, as I have always done through Committee of Youth on Mobilization and Sensitization, CYMS platform in partnership with the federal government. Of course, she's saying she's learned through the years of impactful leadership comes from visionary leaders. And she believes that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is one visionary leader, and it will be easier for her to be on that side of the table to adjudicate her responsibilities as a woman and as a youth under this administration.
Well, there's a lot of conversations. Still going back to the very big question we asked, one of the things that they just concluded elections gave to Nigerians is the fact that for the first time we're having a lot of new political parties springing up and gaining relevance and becoming stronger, which would mean we'll have a lot of opposition other than just the usual PDP against APC. Now we can see the narrative is changing. You have the PDP, the APC, the Labour Party, you have the NNPP, and then the APM. So the more stronger oppositions you have, the better it is for democracy. But when we're beginning to see people who were strong voices in other political parties beginning to cave in, throw in the towels, and join the league of the APC, the ruling party at the time being, it gives room for concern. It gives cause for concerns for Nigerians. And most Nigerians are saying, well, maybe these persons are beginning to tell us they were just about gaining relevance using these other political parties so people could know, or the ruling party could see their word and then invite them over. Maybe it was not really about forming a strong opposition, but rather standing out so that the opposition can call you in, negotiate, and then you get to join the ruling class. But be that as it may, it's a good one for Tonto DK. I mean, decisions are always about personal choices first and foremost before you get to look at other things. But we'll move away from that and head out to the news brief next, rather a daily spotlight, where we'll be taking you around the front pages of the national dailies. When we come back, of course, more conversations on Rise and Shine.
Of course, Daily Spotlight bringing you information from the front pages of our national dailies. Our first stop this morning is going to be the Daily Trust. Big story there this morning, of course. Judgment Day for Tinubu Atiku Obi. As Supreme Court rules today, I will win, says Mr. President. I have made my case, says ex-Vice President. We are confident of our candidate's victory, says Labour Party. Security beefed up at Supreme Court complex. It's a big day for Nigeria. We also see here General Alkali's body was butchered after he was killed, says witness. Very sad story there. Tinubu offers mourn as Adamu Fika buried in Kaduna. Court dismisses suit by ExxonMobil against NMDPRA. Of course, affirms regulatory powers of NMDPRA. Stories available on page 25. We also see here DSS releases ex-EFCC chair Bauer after 133 days in detention. We also see here Senate moves to bar CBN governors from partisan politics. Let's see how well that drives down. That conversation had always been there when Godwin Emefiele made the move. So what's going to be done differently this time? War on Gaza. Russia resolution fails at UN Security Council. Page 26. The last story here says 9,000 Nigerians defrauded into a listing for federal government's household palliatives. page 23. And that's all we have on the front page of Daily Trust.
Well, our next stop this morning is the front page of Daily Times, and the kicker there says Atiku Obi appeal finale today. Supreme Court holds aces. Of course, we also see, will Tinubu remain president? Question. Will Nigerians see a new era? Today is last lap of hotly contested process. We're still on the front page of the Times. Air traffic controllers raised alarm on state facilities. Disaster waiting to happen. Those are the two major stories you find on the front page of Daily Times this morning.
We'll move on from Daily Times. Nigerian Tribune is our next paper. Nigerian Tribune, big story there, says 8-month battle over. Tinubu's victory ends today as Supreme Court decides Atiku Obi's case. Of course, we also see here federal government should order NNPCL to sell petrol diesel directly to marketers, says Ipman. We really do hope that the federal government, Francis, can wade into this matter of PMS. It is going to be something else in this country if we add up all of these inconveniences in Nigerians. Well, we also see here court stops Senate's award of 18.4 billion compensation to 36 rivers oil communities. Page 8 is where you can find details of that story. We also see here revisit 2014 National Confab report. South leaders tell Tinubu and National Assembly. Page 28. Nigeria will be in deeper trouble if we don't cut waste, Obaseki warns. I think Obaseki has been given quite a number of warnings to the federal government in recent times. He has given warning about the petroleum sector, and it seems to be some political prophet at this time. He should be taken seriously, and his warnings should be, factored into some of the policy reforms that the federal government is doing. We also see here court removes Gandhi as son of Ogbomosho, orders fresh selection process. Bielsa, APC reacts as INEC deletes silver from candidate names. Bill to ban CBN governor, deputies from partisan politics passes second reading at Senate. Page 5. 9 states get new resident electoral commissioners. Page 19. Some of these conversations we've already had in Rise and Shine, so we'd like to take advantage of our social media platforms to catch up on all the detail. We also have here IPPIS, of course, federal government threatens to remove unverified civil servants from payroll October 27. 2,360 children killed in Gaza issues, says UNICEF. Sad story. FRIN shut down as EFCC students clash in Ibadan. Page 5. Last story. Armed robbers invade Tao sued private hostels, rape 4 students. Page 15. Very sad story. We really need security to be beefed up around the country in different areas at this time.
Well, our next up is the front page of the Nation newspaper. The kicker there says, Shatima, farm centers in 774 councils to take off soon. Vice President woos investors with Nigeria's 70 million hectares of arable land. Of course, still on the front page of the Nation, you see federal government to release unverified workers from payroll. Page 5 has the story. 10 nominees for Senate screening as regs. New chiefs for Lagos orders. That story is on page 6. Of course, we also see no going back on October 31st exit date for ambassadors. That's coming from the federal government, of course, government embargoes account. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
Moving from the Nation, we're going to be taking our last paper, that is the Punch. Well, diesel, jet fuel, rising prices threaten industries and airlines. Diesel, aviation fuel sell for 1,000 naira. Factories shut down in Kano, Ogun, Anambra, others. Telecoms operators use 40 million liters of diesel monthly, says man, warns against hike. Whoa. Federal government delegates visit flooded Ogun communities, promise succor. Okay, there's a picture story there, of course. Them in their vehicles for their vehicles of work tools, driving through flood areas of Ogun State, so that they can really tell us why they need those 160 million vehicles. An example is on your screen. We also have here Mobile hid for 6 months over fear of attack, says parents. This Mobile case still lingering on. Page 4 and 5 is where you can find details. National Assembly to probe lawyers, others behind $11 billion P and ID scandal. Page 25. We do hope that this issue that has been done will bring us some wealth back into the country. President to present 2024 budget in November, says Senate. Page 28, we're here for it. 5.5 trillion naira payroll. Federal government stop workers' salaries not on IPPIS. Okay, that's all the stories that we can take this morning on the front page of the Punch, and all of what we have available for us on the front pages of our national dailies. You'd pick up any of these national dailies to get details, or piggyback on the conversations that we've had on Rise and Shine this morning to get some of the details of these stories. But that's the much we can take at this point. We take a quick break and move to the news brief desk, where Mary Josephson stand by to bring us tidbits of global news. When we return, there's a lot of conversation we need to have. How are we generating information to help us with policy reforms and other necessary policies in the country? Stay tuned. Rise and Shine returns to your screen shortly.
SpectrumTv, broadening your horizon.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
The Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court, my lord.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
State and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses in collective counting.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses in collective counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to the Morning News Brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. We begin the news brief this morning with a report that investors have been given a glimpse into the country's massive agricultural potential. Vice President Kashim Shettima unveiled the enormous capacity for investment in agribusiness in Iowa, United States on Tuesday. To guarantee food security, he said the federal government plans to merchandise farm centers in all the 4 local government areas. According to him, Nigeria remains the best place to invest with about 70 million hectares of underutilized arable land, which is 75% of our total land area. Meanwhile, the Senate on Wednesday considered 2 bills seeking to ban the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and deputy governors of the Apex Bank from participating in politics. The 2 bills passed a second reading during plenary at the upper chamber. The Senate passed them after the consideration of 2 similar bills sponsored by Sunday Karimi, the lawmaker representing Kogi West Senatorial District, and Darlington Nwokocha, lawmaker representing Abia Central Senatorial District. In a separate development, the Director General of the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, Gambo Aliyu, Wednesday urged Nigerians to demand HIV testing, prevention, treatment and care services for adequate coverage and to meet the United Nations target of ending AIDS by 2030. Aliyu said this at a 2-day workshop training for social media influencers, bloggers and journalists in Abuja. He also said though HIV does not have a cure, it no longer kills and it can be managed successfully. The NACA DG noted that the agency had succeeded in reducing HIV from the disease that kills to the disease that no longer kills. On the foreign scene, UN Refugee Agency says no fewer than 114 million people worldwide have been forced to flee their homes by the end of September due to conflicts, persecution and human rights violations. War in Ukraine and conflicts in Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Myanmar, drought, floods and insecurity in Somalia, as well as prolonged humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan have been the main drivers of the alarming new total. Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, expressed his concern, stating that globally far too many conflicts are proliferating or escalating, shattering innocent lives and uprooting people. And finally, in sports, Super Falcons and Ethiopia's Lucy put up a hard-fought battle in Addis Ababa Wednesday afternoon with the 2024 Olympic qualifier game ending 1-1 to set up an interesting return leg in Abuja on Tuesday next week. Captain Rashidat Ajibade's scorching shot from the edge of the box 6 minutes after the restart restored partially at the Abebe Bekila Stadium after the Ethiopian girls had surprisingly taken the lead in the 6 minutes of play as Beriki Ameri made hay from a corner kick. Both teams will clash against at the MKO Abiola National Stadium Abuja on Tuesday, with the winner on aggregates to proceed to the third round, where the winner of the Cameroon-Uganda fixture awaits. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine, where we have Francis and Uyai on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to recover for the lapses in collective counting.
World Development Information Day is celebrated on 24th October every year to draw the attention of the world to develop problems and the need to strengthen international cooperation to solve them. In 1972, the United Nations General Assembly decided to institute a World Development Information Day, coinciding with United Nations Day on October 24th. The General Assembly had the object of drawing the attention of world public opinion each year to develop problems and the necessity of strengthening international cooperation to solve them. The day was further recognized as a date on which the International Development Strategy for the Second Nations Development Decade was adopted in 1970. On May 17, 1972, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development proposed measures for information dissemination and for the mobilization of public opinion relative to trade and develop problems. This became known as Resolution 3038, which the United Nations General Assembly passed on December 19, 1972. This resolution called for introducing World Development Information Day to help draw the attention of people worldwide to develop problems. A further aim of the event is to explain to the general public why it is necessary to strengthen international cooperation to find ways to solve these problems. The Assembly also decided that the day should coincide with United Nations Day to stress the central role of development in the United Nations work. World Development Information Day was first held on October 24, 1973, and has been held on this date each year since then. In recent years, many events have interpreted the title of the day slightly differently. These have concentrated on the role that modern information technologies such as the internet and mobile telephones free from digital divide can play in alerting people and finding solutions to problems of trade and development. One of the specific aims of World Development Information Day was to inform and motivate young people, and this change helped to further this aim. As we celebrate this year's World Development Information Day, let us take a pause to ponder on the opportunities available on the internet today and how that has and can significantly help individuals, firms, and government in bridging the information and knowledge gap through availability of online platforms offering different training and certification on relevant skill sets within and outside the tech space, create employment for both self-employed and remote workers, e-trading, and ultimately content creation. Described as the 21st century oil wells, government and advanced countries are leading investments to boost creativity, information, and productivity using the internet. To best understand why this day is important, the significance of World Development Information Day is deep, as the day is dedicated to public awareness about the need for international cooperation, encourage people to take action in development and success of information and communication technology in every sector. The theme for this year's World Development Information Day, harnessing the power of information and communication technologies to build a better world, emphasizes incorporating science and technology in development. Today, people all over the world are daily becoming millionaires by mining data, building an app, coding a program, creating content, and publishing books online. Artificial intelligence is trending with all the possibilities that come with it. This not only calls for concern, but deliberate efforts to be at the vantage point. Back here in Akwa Ibom State, it is important to echo to the present government, led by Pastor Umoeno, to prioritize the Ibom Science Park project and Ibom Creative Hub amongst others. And the State House of Assembly urged to speedily pass the law that will provide the enabling environment for Akwa Ibom State to become the converging point for great tech-driven innovations and businesses. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu must not pay lip service to his stand on the creation of 1 million jobs yearly from the tech sector in the interest of all Nigerians. Above all, as a Nigerian, today offers you the opportunity to make the intentional decision to hone a new skill in tech and utilize it to gain a lot more relevance and become profitable thereof. Remember, the world is changing in hours by the load of information technological advancement made, and only by keeping up with the trends in knowledge will you remain relevant regardless of age, career, location, or qualifications.
Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. This is still Rise and Shine. We're beaming live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Of course, Mary Joseph brought us tidbits of global news. You've seen the report. Some of the issues that we'll be delving into this morning. Development of information and how it impacts upon policies and different issues happening around us as a nation. Before we went on the news brief desk, we saw quite a number of issues happening around the country at this time. Top of which is the fact that estranged EFCC ex-boss in the person of Abdul Rashid Bauer has been released from the detention of the DSS after serving 134 days. But big questions, what is going to happen hereafter? You're going to find out some of our inputs on that conversation if you head onto YouTube to get the full detail of that. We also see the fact that the president has appointed 9 new INEC regs across different states of the federation, including one in Akwa Ibom State and the person of Itekamba Umarin. We also have INEC saying that the elections, off-season elections of November 11 in the 3 states, Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo, are very, very crucial. We also see here that tomorrow the federal government has threatened, being Friday, to remove about 89,000 plus 89,100 persons from the payroll of the federal government for not being verified on the IPPIS. Of course, these are some of the conversations we've had so far. The federal government says October 31st remains sacrosanct for ambassadors that have been recalled by the president to return to the country. These are some of the conversations we've had so far. Tonto Dike has defected to the APC from the ADC. She says she wants to join the renewed hope agenda of the president to serve as a woman and as a young person. These and more some of the conversations we've had so far on Rise and Shine. To catch up on all that, please do follow us across all social media platforms where you'll find the detail of these conversations. Right now, we have on standby our resource person for this morning to have several conversations with us. We are looking into several issues, communication. Of course, we also see the fact that the United States is suing Meta, the owners of Facebook, Instagram, and Thread. They're suing them, accusing them of harming the mental health of youth in the United States. We're also looking at information technology. How do we intend to mine knowledge for solutions to societal problems? We have a very astute resource person joining us this morning all the way from Uyo in the person of Udeme O'Connor. Of course, Udeme O'Connor is a psychotherapist with about 10 years of experience dedicated to mental health education. Of course, he's a resource person that cuts across international communities and national stages, given his great wealth of knowledge. Of course, a graduate of several what we call them now educational certifications from King's College London, London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. So we have a serious issue on our hand this morning. Good morning, Udeme O'Connor, and thanks for joining us. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I hope you can hear us this morning.
Yeah, sure. Good morning. I'm able to hear you loud and clear. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have Francis Edet here with us this morning to have the conversation.
Good morning, Udeme. Good to have you joined us.
Good morning, Francis. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start from the information and communication technology and the need for us to mine knowledge. You know that in days past we were told knowledge was something you can, information took a lot longer time for it to expire, but today it's in the hours. Like, if you're not updating yourself every day, you're missing out on the latest happenings and developments. So the first question I asked this morning, how can we as a people utilize the wealth of information available to transfer into knowledge, and then of course use that to proffer solutions to some of the problems bedeviling the community?
Thank you very much, Francis. It's we live in an information age. Back in the days, it was just easy to live life and then post letters and wait for weeks for letters to arrive at doorsteps and the rest of it, and then take another number of days to write replies and send back. But today everything happens in nanoseconds. So you could just write an email from here and then send to someone who is in another continent entirely, and then the person is able to receive in real time. Matter of fact, I am not in your studio as of this morning, but from wherever I was, which I had to pull over by the roadside, I can hold conversations with you on the go because of information and communication technology and the advancements that it has brought. And so I'd like to for a start up as a people coming to the realization that if we do not communicate, we actually have decided to relegate ourselves to, the Stone Age, maybe back in the woods. And so we must deliberately, I beg your pardon, see how to leverage the different resources at our disposal to solve problems. For instance, in our country, statistics. So, because in nation building, in budgeting, in planning, in policy regulations, and the rest of it, it is not done, in the realm of speculation. You must have had sufficient information. You must have been able to gather data to be able to ascertain the people you are planning for. For instance, in Nigeria, it is, we say that we are about 200,000 or the 200 million people. So this is still in the realm of speculation until we are able to have specific.
We do hope that this network is going to allow us to have a smooth conversation this morning. Of course, we are talking information technology, mining knowledge for solutions to society's problems. These are the conversations. This is the conversation we're having this morning, and Udeme O'Connor is joining us virtually from Uyo, the capital city of the Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria, to look at how we can actually mine knowledge and information to help us to bring about solutions for African problems by, we are moving to a day and time where we're saying Africans should be the ones to generate solutions for African problems. And of course, we have a resource person who is delving into that particular subject for us. We do hope that the network allows us to have a very smooth conversation with him this morning.
I think one important thing that he's highlighted so far is the fact that for us to be able to adequately plan to address issues from budgeting at the federal level, even at the state level, we need to know for a fact how many people we're planning with, how many people we're budgeting for. It's just like planning an event. If you say you want to feed people in your event, you don't just wake up and then begin to associate money. All right, we're glad to have you back. So let's have you continue with your line of thought. Sorry about the glitch.
Thank you. It's all right. So I was.
Okay, we still have that issue going on right now. Okay, we seem not to know where this network issue is coming up, whether it's on our end or it's on Udeme's end, but we do hope that we can have a smooth conversation this morning. Of course, we'll have our phone lines, of course, available for contributions this morning. How do you gather information in your different areas to affect, society, to affect generation of solutions for society's problems? Go ahead, Udeme, please, if you're back in.
Okay, yes. I'm not exactly sure what network is that, but so as I was saying, we must deliberately see how to get tailored information, gather data to help our planning and implementation of policies and projects for the people. So for today, I'm lending my voice to the advocacy for us to not continue to plan in a vacuum, for us to begin to plan, in a speculative way. We must get specifics, we must get sufficient data so that we do not continue to waste scarce resources at our disposal. Thank you.
Okay, so we are still looking at mining this knowledge out. What are some of the avenues that you can say that we can leverage on to generate information that would help us to bring solution to society's problems? And let's talk with the peculiarity of Nigeria and Africa as our case study. We know that we have hydra-headed issues on our continent. Leadership is a major problem that we have. Management of resources is one thing. How can we, put to bear? And let's also acknowledge the fact that we have a lot of intelligent minds in the country. We just seem to have a problem with appropriation of information. How can we harness all of this and, become solution-oriented as a people?
I'd like to start by saying that if the problem is
we are losing Udeme's trend of thoughts with the internet. I think we're going to see if we can call him directly. Udeme, can you hear us clearly? There seems to be a lot of buffering on your end. Okay, let's give him a minute. Let's take a quick breather and see how we can fix up Udeme so we can have a really, really smooth conversation with him this morning. We sincerely apologize for some of the glitches that we experienced. We're still on that conversation that will help us to bring solutions that are geared towards these kinds of issues. Proper information, proper knowledge mining to give us solutions for Nigerian peculiar problems, African peculiar problems. Udemo Connor is our resource person. He is a psychotherapist, mental health expert, and also a public affairs analyst. He's breaking down how we can gather information and how we can input it favorably in our systems. We were asking, with all of the problems that we have facing us as a continent and as a nation, leadership and all the likes, how would you say that we can come to a day we can that we will implement the very wise words that we have flying around? Implementation is just a big problem with them.
Yeah, well, I think just as I system and is another solution. This is that if the problem is about the and nothing has said.
Okay, we still seem to have the same issue. I don't know if we can get any help. This is really getting in the way.
One minute.
This is really, really getting in the way. I don't know. We need some solutions this morning. Please help us out.
Well, it's Nigeria happening, and Nigerians would say, I mean, if things like this don't happen, you wouldn't know that you are in this country called Nigeria. And the network providers will tell you we are doing the best we can, but of course, you still get some funny scenarios playing out as far as network services and network reception is concerned. We sincerely apologize we can't bring you that conversation, but let's talk about some of the things that are really making the headlines this morning. I mean, the issue between the embattled presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, that of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who happens to be the presidential candidate of the APC, is going to be decided. And there are a lot of questions, there are a lot of concerns, there's heightened anxiety across Nigeria. Many are asking, will the Supreme Court's verdict be different from that of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, or are we going to see the Supreme Court upholding the verdict of the Election Petition Tribunal that upheld Ahmed Bola Tinubu as the victor of the just concluded 2023 general elections? But beside that, I think most Nigerians are calling on Atiku Abubakar and Labour Party Peter Obi at this point to, in the event that the Supreme Court finds Ahmed Bola Tinubu still as the authentic candidate that was returned elected as announced by INEC, then they should down their tolls and forget further litigations, which of course many have said is also a very big distraction to what Ahmed Bola Tinubu might be able to achieve going forward.
Well, today is a big day in Nigeria, of course. The Supreme Court is going to be giving their verdict. Whichever way this turns, we need to look at how we're going to move forward as a nation. We're also looking at sometimes pros and cons. When you look at the other side, if the Supreme Court gave a verdict that is different from what the petition tribunals gave, will we be able to, what will we do differently? You know, it's the impetus of certain Nigerians thinking that, you know, if the results are going to come out differently, if we were to be given to another party, what is their guarantee of thinking that the peculiar problems that we're currently facing in the country will suddenly just go away with the flip of the finger? That is a big question. Number two, some of these policies that have been made by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu are said by certain experts that they will yield, you know, benefit for the nation in the long run. The long run time calculation we do not know, but there is a thing that we have observed in the politics of Nigeria. If one person comes into office, they hardly would continue with the moves made by, you know, their predecessor. Now, that is a risk and a conversation we must have in anticipation of the Supreme Court judgment. Nobody knows what it is going to be. But are Nigerians willing to risk? For instance, if it were said that it was going to be given to a different party other than the APC at this time, what kinds of risks are we, willing to obtain if another person comes to the saddle of responsibility? Are you not going to also, are we not afraid that we might see haphazard saying, oh, this particular verdict or policy reform that was brought about by the Tinubu-led administration, we overhaul. Where is it really going to take us? Is a different Supreme Court judgment as opposed to what the tribunal held going to move us forward as a nation? There's a lot of questions we can ask with regards to the expectations on ground today.
Well, there are definitely a lot of questions. First and foremost, government is continuum in as much as the verdict is within the confines of the Supreme Court to decide who is going to come out victorious at the end of the day. Certain concerns that you've raised this morning, Nigerians have also queried those questions and those concerns. First and foremost, in the event that the verdict favors some other person other than the APC candidate, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, goes to any of the other candidate contesting the elections, what would that mean for Nigeria's democracy? What would that mean for the policies that has been rolled out so far? What would that mean for the state of the nation? A lot of those concerns are being raised. But of course, many Nigerians would also tell you, for democracy, in the event that the court favors another person, and it is within the rights, the provisions, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that the Supreme Court chooses, and whoever that is, then Nigerians would be satisfied with it. Of course, the other group of Nigerians believe that if Ahmed Bola Tinubu is returned at the Supreme Court, then that should be the end of the fight, litigations by Tiko Abubakar and Peter Obi, respectively. We're also looking at the, what this would mean if Ahmed Bola Tinubu is returned again. That means the distraction coming from court cases, litigations, the uncertainties surrounding the possible likelihood of thinking, oh, Supreme Court or courts are upturning elections. I mean, just yesterday we saw Abo replacement being sworn in at the Senate, and it goes back to conversations we've had several times where the senators, the House of Rep members are not even being able to, put in the very best into the job because they're still, hanging in the balance. Their fate is hanging in the balance across the different courts of the Federation where different litigation cases have been brought up against them, joining INEC and their different political parties. But be that as it may, with a number of litigations ongoing, with the upturning of election results here and there, I think there is every concern for us to also know that possibly there could be a lot of pressure on President Ahmed Bola Tinubu as a result of the litigations. But then when this is brought to a logical conclusion and the verdict is given and is still being upheld, I think that would take a lot of tension and stress off him. But in the event that it doesn't work that way, well, Nigerians would expect that whoever is coming in would not just begin to bulldoze the generality of the policies that so far has been made by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Rather, the person would need to holistically look at it, look at the long-term effect, look at the short-term effect, and if there is need to ever recall or regig any of those policies, then it should be done in a way that Nigerians are not going to suffer the brunt of that. But of course, democracy is going to take place. The bulk of the responsibility is within the purview of the Nigerian Supreme Court, and the verdicts is what Nigerians are waiting for. But aside from that, another very disturbing story that we saw this morning, which of course is another very big concern, that Nigerians are joining IPMAN to reach out to Ahmed Bola Tinubu, is the question of IPMAN calling on the federal government to direct the NNPCL to sell petrol and diesel directly to marketers. I know that back in school, in economics, we were taught that the activities of middlemen are one of the biggest problems that we have when it comes to hiking prices. Because when you sell at a certain price from the depot, the respective warehouses to the middlemen would also want to make their profit. before getting down to the people. Recall, I think 2 days ago we were told at the depot about 9 million naira is the taking price, and then after taking at the taking price of 9 million naira, these middlemen now sell to the independent marketers at about 16.8 million naira. That means about 7 million naira. 7+ million naira has been added to the original price that NNPCL is selling. And a lot of questions will come from this point. Why is Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who wants to ensure that Nigerians are not suffering excessively as a result of the end of fuel subsidy removal, is not sitting on the top of the ladder to take decisions that will benefit Nigerians? How is it that NNPCL is not selling petroleum products directly to the marketers, who will now take it down to the people? Because if the products are sold directly to the marketers, then these middlemen, the activities of the middlemen, and the significant impact they are bringing to the changes and the hike in the petroleum product is going to be removed. But it's a big worry for us to know that as Nigerians, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is sitting down in the office, the different ministers and people saddled with the responsibility within the petroleum upstream and downstream sector are not doing the job of regulating the activities happening within that sector. It is completely insensitive. It is completely unpatriotic for the presidency, for the members of the National Assembly to sit back and watch NNPCL sell petrol to middlemen who will further exploit Nigerians, who are furthering exploiting Nigerians. And this goes back to the conversations Nigerians have called. What is Mele Kyari doing as the NNPC chair at this point in time? Who is giving him the backbone to do some of the things that are happening? Nigerians are being exploited and nobody's saying anything about it.
It's a tight place that Nigerians are in. And like I said earlier, with regards to all of these petroleum conversations, something needs to be done and done now. We are closing in on the holiday seasons, and usually without notice, when it comes to the holiday season, prices just, go up on every end. It is important that the federal government wades into this matter. The question of what Mele Kyari is doing as the boss of the NNPC has been overflowed. What is the National Assembly doing with regards to probing into the activities of the NNPCL at this time? If it is a middleman bottleneck that we are having, we know the impact of Forex on them being able to, import fuel into the country. The Central Bank of Nigeria, the Minister of Economy, Wale Edun, has said they're about to borrow $10 million to invest to cushion, the Naira against the Forex. How soon can these things be done? Is this even the most effective economic step to be taken as of this time? And when these kinds of borrowing and cushioning are done, how long is it going to take until, the economy shakes up and balances out again for Nigerians to be able to have some respite? It's been on and on since May 29, different things changing. The place and the role of NNPC also with regards to the price of the fuel is very, very troubling. Remember that Ipman has continued to accuse the federal government and NNPC of maintaining fuel subsidy, because the accusation is, if you are not subsidizing petroleum products in the country, there is no way we will still be buying petroleum products at about 600 naira, 650 as of this time. That if it was unsubsidized, the prices would have gone all the way up to about 1,000 naira per liter. But if that is even done in the country, is that for the good of Nigerians, or is it going to work against Nigerians at this time? We seem to have a lot of problems, and we often do not think through our policies and our processes before we do them. We've heard for the likes of the CBN governor now stated he has been warned not to repeat the sins and the mistakes of Godwin Emefiele, because, the dance step still looks the same. These are the problems that we have across different sectors. But Nigerians are tired of asking questions that do not receive answers. We need to begin to see how policies are framed to meet the needs of Nigerians, the people that elected you into the office. The reverse, where the followers are involved, sometimes when policies are initiated by the federal government, they will not come with immediate solutions. Some of them are going to be long-term. Is there a way Nigerians are, can buffer through the season of the difficulties they will face? I think somehow it also still goes back to what the federal government puts in place. The wage award how feasible it is. We've buried for palliatives. How many people can testify to have, put their hands on these palliatives? If at all they get palliative, Francis, we're hearing of, 40, 30 kg, 50 kg bag of rice. It's going to take a couple of days before that's done with in certain families. What then has the federal government really, really done for Nigerians to cushion the effect of, fuel subsidy removal? More questions seems to be what we have on the table for the federal government as led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu. 2 months down the line, 2023 will be done with. Are we going to have policies that will help Nigerians to, survive? Or we are also going to hear the president come out soon and still ask Nigerians to suffer a little while we have members of the National Assembly continue to live in some kind of oblivion as if they do not belong to this country. These are concerns that we have, but this is the much we can talk about on Rise and Shine this Thursday morning. It's been a great delight, but we must apologize for being unable to bring to a conclusive end our interview with Ujem O'Connor. We do hope that we can reschedule and have that information, that conversation. Of course, information is power. We need to know how to generate and properly implement this information in the country. But until we return to your screens again tomorrow, thank you for being a part of Rise and Shine. Thank you for choosing Spectrum Television. And of course, thank you for all of your feedback, your contribution. You are the reason why we come on your screens every day. My name is Uyai Aneka. Let's do this again tomorrow.
And I am Francis Oyemaide. Thanks for joining us and do enjoy the rest of your day.